Maybe we could just do something like this, like horizon, far background, background, close background, immediate background, and then we'll do the same thing with our foreground. So we'll have like the immediate foreground, close foreground, foregrounds, the far foreground. What would be a good name for something that's right off of the track, but is still in perspective mode? So it'd be like wouldn't be immediate foreground, because we've already used that, and that means like closest to the camera. Yeah, I know. It's when you actually you kind of have a language for your game when you're making it, so it doesn't always make sense outside of the game. I don't know, what would be something that's right in front of another object, but furthest away from you, closest. It's something it's right in front of the object, but it's also the furthest thing away from you to that object. I guess we could just call it track foreground. And just like recognize that there's not a very good name there. So we're gonna need, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So we got 18 times 5 layers, which is a grand total of 90 things to enter for this. Default editor.ini. Well, let's check out the file. So, enable snap layers, foreground, default, background. This looks like a really good place to set up some auto generation, because if we change something, then we want to be able to remake all this crap. So what I think is the right idea here is to make an auto generation system for all these things and chunk it into this file somehow. We don't necessarily need to make it super easy to do. We just have to make it exist. So it's easy, because when people, how often are you going to edit the frickin' snap layers? I mean, you're not. You're going to edit it like a couple times to start with, and you're never going to touch it again. So let's go to our Dashkin, game data. Let's do objects. Let's do layers.json. So we're going to have layers be an array, and we're going to have our objects. So we're going to have name, and then we're going to have our starting X. And when we have our layer data, let's have our layer because we might want to have things have different widths. So we'll have like layer types, and we'll have our objects in there. So this will be the names. This would be like foreground, and we're gonna have like layer width. I guess we should have layer back, and this is gonna be like 401. And have like layer front. Layer front is going to be interesting here because with our perspective, it's going to be in front of the camera. So we probably want like layer front for all the foreground stuff to be at like 2000. And we want like a layer width. Put it like 20. So we'll have a name. We're going to call it track. Layer back is going to be -399. Layer front is going to be, I guess we can do like -400 and then 400. And then this layer width is going to be 20. So the name will be background. We need layer width, and we also need like sub-layer width. So for background, it's going to start at layer front is going to be -401. Layer back is going to be like -60,000 or something. Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what we're doing. So like your NPC foreground is always, every one of those sublayers is going to be in front of like, you know, the NPC layer and all that. So let's do a little bit of math here. So if we've got this, if we have between 400, so we got 1600 for the foreground layers. If we have 20, we should have 80. The distance for the layer width should be 80, and then sub-layer width should be 20. Doesn't make sense to me. So 800 divided by 20 is going to be 40, divided by 5 is 8. Okay, so it's 1600 divided by 80 would be 20 for a sublayer width. So yeah, layer width is 80, sublayer width is 20 for this. For the background, let's see, we've got 60,000. Actually, why don't we just make it regular? 60,000, 4001. Something like that. It really doesn't matter. We're going to start at the front and go to the back anyway with all these things. I should actually probably do it like this, where layer depth is a value, so we just have like layer depth. It's probably easier to work with than these absolute numbers. It makes more sense. Like the algorithm's easier to understand. If it's here's the front and then it's 800 units deep, that'll make more sense on a programmatic level. Because having to define like 399s and like 401s and you know all that can be difficult because they're context specific, like all that. So if we've got 60,000, we divide that by 500, we have 120. So if we just throw like 500 here, we have 120. Now let's do 60,000 divided by 20. So the layer width would be 3,000. Let's see, we want layer type. We could turn this into an object, then we can reference these by name directly. So be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be index 4, index 5. I mean, that's kind of the other thing, is we could actually do sublayers in here, like an array of them, like this. Alright, I think that's probably easier to work with. This would be the track. We've got track background, foliage background, NPC background, player, NPC foreground, player foreground, foliage foreground, foreground. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We should also probably make sure all this stuff is in order in screen order, that is, so it's a little bit easier to conceptualize where everything is. So this will be track foreground, bar foreground, what's foreground, immediate foreground. Let's see, layer types is invalid. Layer front, there's not a comma between layer types. Okay, that's valid JSON. So I think this will probably work real well. Let's actually take a look. How far away are these mountains? You can't even click on them? Why not? Those are at 12,000. Those are 17. I should just pop open Adam's level. So he made a new one. Can't click on anything? Why not? I'm getting upset with this. Why don't you just... Can we just turn you off visibly? Can I not click on anything? What is this trash? Can't click on any goddamn objects. Well, then we're just gonna kill the editor and start it over, because obviously something is messed up there. Alright, now I can click on things. I still can't click on stuff in the background, like that makes no sense to me, like... I can't select the 2D objects anymore. What? How come I can't select 2D objects? Select 3D objects, but no 2D objects. Is there some reason for this? Is it because there's no collision on it, or? I don't understand. I just cannot click on Paper 2D sprites anymore. Well, this is a big damn problem. When the hell did this start happening? There's gotta be some reason I can't click on these things. Well, let's see. Cannot click on actor and editor. Okay, so there is a magical button here. If you hit T, you can no longer select translucent objects. And of course, all these things are translucent objects. So if you hit T, it just stops fucking working. That's scary. I hate those sorts of things. Where like you randomly hit a button because like, you know, you're typing something into another editor and then like the editor pops up and then nothing works anymore and you're like, and there's no UI indication. It's just, you know, there's no, I'm hitting T right now. And there's no indication that I can't select something. So you would just do like I did and think you're insane and you can no longer select anything in the editor when that's absolutely not true. Alright, well let's go pop open that beautiful corner and take a look at the back objects and see how far away they are. So the mountains are at really damn far away. What is that value? Wish they had commas in some of these things. So that is at 200,000, so that's 200 kilometers away? No, that's like 2 kilometers away. And that's at like 47,000 and like 80,000. So it looks like he's got what? How many layers? He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers of stuff in the background. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 layers. Let's take a look here. If we had, you know, like 260 divided by 5 layers, we'd have like 52,000 between the layers. And what is 52,000 divided by 5? Like 10,000? So, alright. So if we had the sublayer width of 50,000, so it'd be times 5. Something like that. Yeah, obscure hotkey, no pop-ups, doesn't get reset when you close the editor. That's the sort of stuff that, like, I remember trying to learn how to use 3ds Max and back in college, and it was just so funny because as soon as you start using something, you're like, okay, I know what I'm doing. Then you hit some button and then nothing will work anymore, and you just close the program. And thankfully, the defaults for all the settings and everything reverted to normal when you closed it. But it was just still the funniest damn thing, because you go over to somebody else who equally didn't know how to use 3ds Max or Maya or whatever the hell, and they'd be doing the same thing. They'd be like, yep, I don't know what the hell's going on, save and quit. So these should give us some basic ideas here. So what we need to do, so we will not save, is we need to now set up the auto gen for this thing. Oops, we don't want that. This will be a new, this should be like editor layers.txt, I guess is what we want. Yeah, the function names. Everything's broken. Everything's gone away. So let's set our template up to actually be generated. Data/editor layers.txt. So this should make it so it doesn't actually get copied in there anywhere. Nothing to do. Alright, good. That's what should happen. So we output, our output should be Dashkin game data editor layers. The thing is, we can actually hook into, like, our generation system allows us to run code inside of our generator, so we can do a lot of little things that we want. So let's like take a look at one of the other templates real quick. So let's see, we're going to be iterating over the game data underscore objects. This will be objects underscore layers. And it's going to be layer data dot layer types as layer name. We just print out the layer names real quick. The idea is a scaredy fat sack, yeah. Yeah, so I guess we actually want to change this stuff to this sort of thing because we don't need everything anymore. Our data structure is simpler than we thought it would need. So it's not going to be layer data, layer types. This is going to be just layered data as layer. And we're going to print out layer dot name. Let's see if that works. Looks like we're missing a comma there. Getting angry at layer data. Yeah, this should be an array, not an object. Okay, so we've got background, track, and foreground. The format for these things is like so. So we're going to do plus snap layers equals, and we're going to have name equals, and we're going to have the layer name underscore, and then we need to do like for every sublayer in layer for layer dot sublayers as sublayer. And then end the list. We want sublayer. Just sublayer is that thing, and the depth is going to be, let's just start it off at 1,000. So we've got all of our snap layers for background, and then sublayer is wrong because so we got background, So we need a loop here for all 5. What were our layer names? Alright, so those look good. So the number that we're going to want here is going to be we want the starting depth is going to be the iteration index multiplied by the going to be the number of sublayers minus the iteration index multiplied by the layer width. And then for each one of these, the sublayer depth is going to be the start depth plus the layer.layer width. This will be layer.sublayer width. Alright, so we want assign start depth equals let's see, layer width. We need to add the layer front. And it's going to be the having to look up a few of these things. This is going to be number of layers, so it's going to be layer dot sublayers size minus, let's see, what is current iteration number. So I guess it's I question mark index, so it's going to be layer index multiplied by layer width. So we're going to say start depth is there, and for each sublayer so we're actually going to put this in here. It's going to be start depth plus. Thanks for the follow, Will Casting. we're just we're getting through just doing some free marker templating for some generation, because we have like a whole bunch of layers in our game and the layers of sublayers, and there's like 100 layers. So instead of just like taking an hour and setting up all the numbers manually, I'm setting it up programmatically so that if I need to change what all the snap layers are later, I've got it all generatable. So I'm like, oh, we want to change like the layer width to 100 as opposed to 50. It's not going to be like, okay, it's going to take me the next 4 hours of my life. It's going to be like, oh, that'll take me, you know, like maybe 20 minutes or something. Or it'll take me no time at all. So this will be start depth plus, we want like a number. This would be 4. This will be plus 4 times the sublayer depth. So we want to assign the sublayer depth. I can just use layer.sublayer width. Let me just actually print it out. Sublayer width equals sublayer width. And this should look like there should be no semicolon at the end. And I think I can add these numbers together. We'll see real quick though. So I really just want to replace this depth here with like these sorts of things. And very obviously we want this to be 0 based and not 1 based. So let's see if I got it right. Well, it says there's no issues. So let's take a look at the math real quick. So we got background, horizon, far background. At a depth of 28,999. Start depth is not taking into account the sublayer index. Like we have the size of the sublayers. Yeah, the start depth should be going down. Yeah, start depth's 540. Not good. Not good. It's like it's only getting assigned once. No, the assignment should be good. So it's the size minus the layer index. Is it the sublayer index that we're actually looking for? Yeah, it's the sublayer size, sublayer index. So that's probably what our issue is there. Alright, so cool. We're looking into turning that's 199, 209, that's 149. Let's see the start width. This is for far foreground. The track background is at a depth of, this depth is not correct. The layer front is at 400. Are our layers just going wrong? Like our starting depth should not be 540, it should be negative 400. So is that what my data is wrong with? The layer front is at negative 400 here, and the layer front here is at negative 2001. Yeah, so this is actually at 400? Yeah, I think this is more in line with what we need. So let's take a look at it. The start depth for the one minus 0. We actually don't want the size should be the same, so we want 1 based. I guess we should use counter. So that's the start depth of the far background. Immediate background is 401. Excellent. So the depth is 401, 10,000, 401, 30,000. Alright, so now we have the track background, which starts at negative 260 and goes to that's obviously not correct. Like our start depth here should be like not this. Alright, well let's take a look at the foreground stuff first. This goes from 400 to 320, 380 to 300, 360 to 280. I mean, this should not be starting at negative 380, it should be starting at 400. So we should, the start depth is wrong. Alright, so the start depth is 400, the start depth is 380. Why would the start depth be 380? It's the sublayer size minus the sublayer counter. We actually want to take the it's not the sublayer counter, it's the layer counter? No, it's the sublayer counter. This is like the layer width is not 20. The sublayer width is 20. Okay, yeah. So the layer width is actually 100. So 400 to 320, 300 to 220, 200 to 120, 100 to 20, 0 to 80. And this goes to 380 for the far background of the track. And it looks like we don't need the layer name in here, we just want like the sublayer name, because that's good enough. Because the sublayer names seem to be unique. So we should be okay with that. And let's double check these things. So it goes from 2001 to start depth is wrong here for this as well. Well, there's 5 sublayers. Our sublayer width should not be, like if it's 20 times 5, it should be 100. So if we have 1600 depth and we have 20 of those, then no, it's 1600 divided by 4. So these should be 400 layer width, and it should be 400 divided by 5, which is 80. So it should look like this for all of our layer widths. Basic math, am I right? Basic math sucks. Alright, so the start of the track foreground and all that stuff. So this is track bar background, start depth is at negative 400. No, it's not quite right. It's not quite right. It starts at 2001. I'd expect the start depth not to be there, so it's... Is it just off by 1? Oh, maybe, I think I might have had it right. I was confused by the names. Because I took out the sublayer name, so it was like track foreground. Yes, this goes from to 481. Well, that looks actually not bad, to be honest. That's not... Like, that's real close, but not too close, and everything else should be able to go on there, so... If we just get rid of all this stuff, we can just say... Copy this into the default editor.ini file to update the snap layers. So let's see what this does. If we get some horrible error where it screams at us for having too many snap layers or for doing something absolutely insane. Or if it just doesn't show any of them. It has what it used to have. What? This is inside of which folder are we messing with? This is default editor.ini. Level editor 2D settings. So they don't have any pluses on there. They just have pluses on the front of these. Enable 2D widgets. Snap axis. This is level editor 2Ds. So maybe I should have an import settings sort of thing going on here. Oh, well, this is also wrong, is what it looks like. We should be closing it with a brace at the end. That doesn't look right at all. 240 and then comma 401. Is this getting all confused? Some of these, it's working with a few of them. Oh, they just have commas because they have commas in them. Because that's how big they are. Let's see, free marker, don't use commas.